Welcome to AutoSens, the global community shaping the future of ADAS and autonomous vehicle perception. We are joined by Daniel Shwartzberg, Director of Business Development and System Solutions at Valens Semiconductor. Daniel's going to talk more about Valens technology, what they're building, and some of the challenges they're solving right now. Daniel, welcome back to AutoSens. Good to see you, friend.
Once again, Carl, it's so good to be back here talking to you again. And I say this every time we speak. Doesn't the time fly? It's just
you literally read my mind. I'm thinking, here it's been, what, another year again? So
mind blowing. Lovely to see you again. Thanks for having me on.
always, friend. And Valens has been gaining more and more momentum throughout 2026 here. You've just released another press release that detailed a design win. And this press release not only underscores the momentum behind Valens, but also the momentum behind the A-PHY standard. So, Daniel, two-part question, the importance of A-PHY, and then ultimately what is driving this shift in the industry as outlined by that recent press release?
So two very good questions. Yeah, the fourth design win announcement that we've made so far for our VA7000 family of MIPI A-PHY compliant chipsets. So to answer the first part of your question, yeah, I mean, A-PHY really does revolutionize sensor connectivity within the vehicle, finally giving the industry what it's so been longing for, which is a truly open standard for high-speed SER, deserializer connection. So basically breaking away from what was in the past the need to use proprietary single source technologies in order to achieve those sensor links. And A-PHY brings a lot of robustness. It's a DSP-based, it's a digital-based technology with by far best-in-class performance in terms of its resilience to electromagnetic noise. It enables extremely high bandwidth. The spec already takes you up to 32 gigabits per second on a single cable. Our first generation of chipset will get you to 8 gig, which actually is enough for a 15 megapixel sensor. Not that too many people need that right now, but we have already in our current product a lot of headroom for additional resolutions in terms of the sensors being used. By the way, equally applicable also for radars or LiDARs. So it gives you a lot of bandwidth, it gives you a lot of robustness, and it's really what the industry wants, a truly open standard. So what's bringing the shift in this industry, and why is A-PHY and our chipset gaining this momentum? So I think the first point is what I've been saying, right? OEMs want standards. They want standardization. They don't want a fragmented ecosystem of proprietary links from all sorts of different vendors. A standard, of course, gives them a multi-vendor ecosystem at the silicon level, right? We are just one of there's actually a large number of silicon vendors bringing A-PHY solutions to market. We're just one of them, and they all know to interoperate, right? So that's the beauty of a standard. That's what the OEMs want. And I think that stands behind the first part of this drive to the adoption of A-PHY. I think the other thing I'll be perfectly honest with you is everyone's waiting to see who jumps first, right? Nobody wants to be the first to adopt a new technology. No matter how good it is, there's always a little bit of reticence. So now, with already 4 design wins under our belt, I think the confidence is obviously growing. Multi-vendor design wins, multi-OEM design should be multi-vendor ecosystem, and that builds the confidence to move forward. And because A-PHY, as I've just mentioned, gets you so far up along the food chain, so to say, in terms of the bandwidth requirements, getting you as a technology all the way already to 32 gigs.
Right.
So the OEMs, the automakers are looking for architecture, future-proof technology that can scale as their needs scale, and their needs are scaling. We see more sensors going into the vehicles. We see higher resolution sensors going into the vehicles. We see more of the driving being done autonomously. So in other words, there are more mission-critical solutions, more mission-critical applications going into the vehicle. And all of that requires a really high-performance, robust technology. And A-PHY brings them exactly what they need. And Valens, with our VA7000 chipset, are the first to bring those devices to market. So yes, a lot of good things happening, a lot of confidence being built, and the design wins and the industry trend to move towards A-PHY is happening in front of our eyes.
It's fantastic, Daniel. So first, congratulations on that latest design win.
Thank you.
And again, I'm sure there's going to be many more to come, and we'll be revisiting this design win topic again in the near future. In the meantime, one of the advantages, as we know, and as you've mentioned about A-PHY, is this idea of an open standard, and it's the ability now to integrate A-PHY into the image sensor. So what are some of the benefits, Daniel, that brings?
Sure. So we've known each other a long time, and you know a lot of my job is other than speaking to wonderful people like yourself, is to go and speak to
Thank you.
customers and potential partners and so on.
Yes, yes.
And when I speak to them, for sure, they fully understand the technical benefits, some of which I've mentioned that A-PHY brings to the industry, you know, the resilience to electromagnetic noises and so on and so forth, the bandwidth. But in addition to those, shall I call them purely technical benefits, it is the ability to integrate the serializer directly into the sensor that I'm hearing time after time is really a game changer. So notice what we're saying is that the way things have been done today is you would have a sensor, you would have a serializer transmitter chip, and then you would have the cable out. So it's usually a two-board solution. It's definitely a two-chip solution. Now with A-PHY, I can suddenly take away the external serializer and I can have the A-PHY transmitter, the serializer port, directly integrated into the sensor, which then comes straight out onto the cable and over to the ECU, okay? So it really means deeply simplifying the cameras, giving them a much more integrated solution. So I take away a serializer chip, I take away all of the bill of materials that goes around that. So what that means from a form factor point of view is that it gets much smaller. And if we think where we're putting cameras, yes, they're in our wing mirrors, in our windshields, and in our rear fenders or bumpers, as we like to say in the UK. But we also, if we think about driver monitoring, we want to start putting these cameras in very specific places, maybe in the instrument cluster, in the binnacle, or maybe in the rear view mirror or something like that. Form factor is becoming critical, needs to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So the ability to remove components out of the sensor, out of the camera, and effectively replace it with what's coming directly off of the sensor gives us a huge benefit in terms of the physical size of the camera itself. But it's not just the size. It's also the power. I'm now taking away a discrete semiconductor device and all of the hardware that goes around it, which means that my overall system power goes down. Power relates, of course, to heat. The higher the power, the more heat that's generated. Cameras are zero airflow, passively cooled devices. So the less heat I'm generating, less power I use, the less heat I'm generating, the less heat there is to dissipate. And that's important because heat impacts image quality. So I'm keeping the heat down. I'm not risking the quality of the image. And as I said at the beginning, these are very often mission critical systems, and we don't want any image quality issues. So for sure, the integration is a game changer, and it's happening right now. Sony Semiconductors IMX828, that's an 8 megapixel sensor with an A-PHY output directly on it. Was already announced to be sampling, and actually myself and my Valens colleagues, we were privileged to get a private showing at that of that sensor connected to a Valens deserializer running in a private room that Sony had at CES. And it's happening, and it really is a game changer. But it's not just Sony. Catching up with them is OmniVision as well. Again, this is public information. I can't share anything that I maybe know that's not public. But we see two very, very well-known sensor vendors already at different stages of doing that integration. So definitely, lots and lots of benefits that it brings to the industry.
Absolutely, Daniel. Last year, when we were in Detroit for AutoSens 2025, you and I recorded a podcast episode. I'm going to leave a link to that in the description. But one of the points on that podcast, one of the topics of discussion, was this idea of an interoperable ecosystem at the silicon level. So, Daniel, a similar question here, revisiting that topic. This idea of a mature ecosystem, what is the significance of a mature ecosystem in the automotive industry?
So, like I say, I speak to a lot of customers, and one of the questions they will always ask me is, okay, tell me about the ecosystem. The OEMs want to see that there's a thriving ecosystem because it shows a maturity of a technology. Now, the beauty of A-PHY is at the silicon level, as I alluded to earlier, it's all interoperable, right? So in other words, you can buy an OEM, a tier one can choose a sensor from Sony, a deserializer from Valens, and it's just going to work, and it does work. In fact, we don't just rely on people following the spec. We are very much at Valens pushing things like PlugFest interoperability testing. The last one of those actually happened for the silicon vendors. I mean, it happened in Taipei at the end of 2025. Throughout 2025, actually, we had several of these sessions. As many as 9 different silicon vendors came to those events. So when I talk about an ecosystem of silicon, it's there. I mean, we're not talking about 1 or 2. A-PHY is definitely not just a Valens technology. It's backed by many, many different silicon vendors. So the OEMs want to know that if they have supply chain issues with one vendor, they have a second source with another. That's the beauty of a truly open standard. But it's not just at the silicon level. You see many new products. Again, at CES, we had in our booth the world's first A-PHY based e-mirror, brought to you by a company called Sakai Riken in Japan and Nippon Chemical, who did the camera side. We saw a Korean company called Montrex with a camera based upon UTP cabling. So there's lots and lots of new products coming to market all the time. And really, when you have this proven technology, what does it mean for the OEMs? It means faster development cycles. It means there's less validation overhead required. It means there's less potential issues, of course, because everything plays together. And really, it comes back to what I said in the first question. It's a confidence builder for the OEMs that they can develop long-term platforms, not just the next gen, but beyond that, based upon an open multi-source standard from the silicon level right up to the product level.
Right. And like you said, Daniel, mentioning beyond, looking forward, and from your vantage point, as you've said, and as we know, you do talk to a lot of customers and you do attend a lot of events like AutoSens and speaking in investor days and opportunities like this. So as a spokesperson for Valens and being part of this industry and representing the A-PHY standard, what do these moves say about where the industry is ultimately headed?
Another great question, and very valid, because I think what's happening right now is we're seeing this change in how the vehicle architectures are looking, right? So in other words, we're moving from distributed architectures where pretty much every new feature required its ECU, and we're moving to more either domain-based, zonal-based architecture, centralized processing. And the systems, let's put it, the actual system is more complex. The automakers want to make the connectivity simpler in order to achieve all this. So we're going to need very high bandwidth. We're going to need very reliable links. And definitely the momentum we see in A-PHY feeds into those changes that are happening. I can't stress enough the point about standardization as well, to enable multi-vendor ecosystem, multi-vendor implementations, basically not locking the OEMs into a particular vendor for a particular technology, because now it's multi-vendor support. And really, yeah, as I need to use I want to use the word backbone. Backbone tends to be more like Ethernet-based technology, but let's talk about backbone for sensing. Okay, so in other words, to have a technology that allows you to add more sensors, higher quality sensor, higher resolution sensors, new sensor modalities, the kind of zonal designs as well. So it's the feeding of all of this data into the processing. That's where the industry is heading. That's where Valens is going to be accompanying them with our A-PHY chipsets.
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel, every year at AutoSens, you and the Valens team, you always showcase cutting edge technology. What can we see this year in Detroit for AutoSens 2026? What can you share a little preview with us?
$1 million question, right?
Yeah,
I got to be careful what I say. I mean, I don't want to spoil it.
sure.
What we will be showing this year, though, I can say is, let's call it the real world A-PHY maturity. So in other words, let's look at things like the multi-vendor interoperability I was talking at. We want to be showcasing some of that stuff. We've talked about integration and, of course, the benefits that brings in terms of cost. So, and reduction in cost and complexity for that matter. So We're going to be showcasing some of that as well. And while we come as representatives, shall we say, of AutoSens, we know that this is also a joint show and conference with in-cabin. So we're going to be showing A-PHY's readiness for both ADAS, but also for in-cabin programs. So I probably said too much, and I'm probably going to get into trouble with our marketing team. But nonetheless, Carl, it's you, and I'd like to give you as much of the news as I can. Let's leave it at that. But we're going to have some really, really cool stuff to be showing in June.
That sounds good. And I'll tell the marketing team it was my idea and I put you up to it. And then that way I'll get in trouble and you won't.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Daniel Shwartzberg, Director of Business Development and Systems Solutions at Valens Semiconductor. Looking forward to seeing you and your team for AutoSens USA 2026, June 9th through the 11th at the Huntington Place in downtown Detroit. Daniel, looking forward to seeing you that week in June in person. But in the meantime, thank you for being with us virtually anyway.
Absolutely, Cole. First of all, thank you so much for speaking to me. And yeah, there's a lot happening with our VA7000 chipset. There's a lot happening with A-PHY technology. And we're really excited to be back in the Huntington Place in June to show everyone around it. So please do stop by the booth and come meet with us.
For more information on Valens Semiconductor and to find out more about our upcoming events, see the links in the description or visit auto-sense.com. That's auto-sense.com. And for more in-depth interviews like this, subscribe to the AutoSense YouTube channel and follow AutoSense on LinkedIn. In Detroit, on behalf of AutoSense, I'm Carl Anthony.